You're 14 years old, and in a few hours, the dress they'll drape over you is worth more than an army's annual expenditure. The palace corridors buzz with feverish preparation. Golden candelabras are positioned one by one, silk pillows folded and stacked like mountains, everyone holding their breath for a ceremony that will be recorded in history. But you, who should be standing at the center of that magnificence, remain motionless in your room with a cold shiver. Your fingers won't obey. Because you know a truth the approaching crowd doesn't know, or would never dare speak even if they did. A truth that won't enter official records, won't appear in chronicles. This is not a marriage. This is a planned operation. And you are not the bride of that plan. You are its sharpest instrument. The person who wrote this scenario is not a vizier or a general. It's your father directly, the Sultan. The rules have been repeated to you since childhood, etched into your mind. First rule, the place you're going is not a new life. It's de facto captivity in a distant province, barely visible on maps. Second rule, the man assigned to you is not a spouse. He's a target to be monitored, analyzed, his every sentence recorded in your memory, his trust used as a weapon when necessary. If you fail, you won't survive. Third rule, the price of failure doesn't come from outside. The execution order won't come from an enemy. It comes from the man who walks you to the wedding table with a warm smile on his face. Your father. These weren't recommendations, they weren't abstract principles read from some dusty manual. These were the operational foundations of one of the most sophisticated fear systems history has ever seen. It was such a flawlessly functioning mechanism that it sustained itself for over 3 centuries, without producing a single open rebellion. Because the targets became unknowingly part of their own downfall. And this system turned Princess Humasha Sultan's wedding day from the most magnificent moment of her life into the first morning of her nightmare. I'm about to show you details so disturbing that some historians choose not to publish them. I'm saving the most terrifying part for last. But first, let's clarify this. This is not an old story forgotten on the dusty shelves of archives. This was a design, a systematic guide prepared to keep the riskiest elements within the empire, your own family, under control. Moreover, the methods developed here didn't disappear with history. Today, the same techniques are still used in cults, abusive structures, and every system that knows freedom is limited not by iron bars, but by psychology. The strongest cell isn't made of steel. Love, duty, and fear become so intertwined you can't tell where one ends and another begins. If you think these stories deserve to be told unembellished and unfiltered, support now and subscribe. Because what you're about to hear will permanently shake your concepts of power, family, and loyalty. Now let me take you to where she grew up, a cage plated with gold. If you want to understand why a 14-year-old princess feared her own wedding day, you must first see the space where her childhood unfolded. Imagine a perfectly designed prison, its bars made of gold, a place where guards bow respectfully as they pass. That's exactly what the imperial harem of Topkapi Palace was. From the moment you're born, 2 fundamental truths are taught to you. First, you are a living symbol of divine magnificence. Second, you are a high-risk element that must be kept under constant control. The education you receive is not designed to make you powerful, but to make you compliant and obedient. You memorize Persian poetry, not so your intellectual world expands, but so you can recite flawless verses on loyalty to the Sultan at state ceremonies. You learn palace protocol, not to acquire leadership qualities, but so you won't make the slightest mistake that would embarrass your father in front of foreign ambassadors. Every lesson, every book, every word is chosen to reinforce a single message. Your value doesn't come from your personality. It doesn't come from who you are. Your value comes from the blood flowing in your veins. And that blood makes you both precious and dangerous. That's why surveillance never stops. You learn that the eunuchs who bring you sweets with smiles are also intelligence officers, recording every word you say and delivering it to your father's desk. If you appear too curious, ask too many questions about politics, or complain even once about your confinement, that report lands before the Sultan before sunset. You are not a princess. You are an element monitored and recorded 24 hours a day. Stories constantly circulate through the harem corridors. Whispered, half-finished stories about other sultans' daughters. But there is one that freezes your blood. The story of Gahan Sultan. According to what's told, Gahan, sister of Suleiman the Magnificent, once expressed curiosity about what lay beyond the palace walls. Her request was innocent. She just wanted to see ordinary life for one afternoon, to walk the Constantinople bazaars in disguise. That night her father, Yavuz Sultan Selim, sent her a gift. A cage made of pure gold. So elegant it could have been displayed in a museum, but so narrow that only a single exotic bird could fit inside. When the cage was opened, the bird was nearly dying, breathless, its wings damaged from rubbing against the ornate bars. There was no explanation. Not a letter, not a single word. Just the cage and the dying bird. The message was sharp and indisputable. Your cage may be larger, but its irreversibility is the same. Gahan never wanted to leave again. This constant indoctrination and uninterrupted surveillance served a single purpose, so that when your wedding day came, you wouldn't see it as a doorway to freedom. So you would perceive it as the first threshold of the cell where you'd spend the rest of your life. And that threshold opens with the first rule. But wait, because the real nightmare will reveal itself when the wedding ceremony begins. Your wedding day arrives, and with it, the first great lie takes flesh and bone. You realize what's presented as honor is actually exile. The ceremony itself is a show of force. You're paraded slowly before ambassadors, nobles. The jewels on you exceed the treasuries of some European kingdoms. Every detail is planned for the world to see the Sultan's magnificence and generosity. But behind the magnificence lies a hidden ritual, a detail almost no historian mentions: the broken map ceremony. While guests are absorbed in the dazzling spectacle, while music rises, while poets praise your sacred union, the Grand Vizier advances toward you. He carries no jewels or ornaments. He carries the map of the entire empire. He spreads the map on the ceremonial table. Then, with an embroidered dagger, he carefully cuts out and removes the province you'll be sent to. And then he does something more shattering. He takes the piece showing the capital Constantinople, the city of your birth, and burns it before your eyes. As the paper curls and blackens, he approaches you and whispers, "This is your world now. Everything else is gone. This is not a new beginning. This is an elegantly designed exile. Your new home is often a distant province, sometimes on the border, in lands where danger never ceases, sometimes in regions where the possibility of rebellion is always close to the surface. Far from the palace, far from the center of power, far enough that your children can never pose a threat to the throne. The man assigned to you is not a fairy tale prince. He's a governor or general whose loyalty your father is certain of. He's not your husband, he's your high-ranking jailer. And you're not his wife. You're an expensive hostage securing his allegiance. If he one day strays from loyalty, you pay the first price. The caravan taking you to your new palace is not a honeymoon journey. It's a funeral procession. Every kilometer you move away from Constantinople is like a nail driven into the coffin of your old life. And you watch the city's domes shrink on the horizon. You know, if you're lucky, you'll only see them again at your own funeral. But there's a detail the chronicles don't openly mention about these journeys. Ottoman bureaucracy recorded almost everything. Travel lists stored in palace archives reveal a disturbing truth. Provisions prepared for these bridal caravans contained not only food and fabric, sedatives and restraint equipment were also included. Because some princesses attempted escape. Some tried to throw themselves from moving carriages. And some screamed so loudly they had to be silenced with drugs so they could reach their destinations without scandal. Records exist showing Humasha Sultan attempted to escape from her wedding caravan 3 times within 1 week. Official documents state she suffered from travel sickness, but provision lists from the same period show leather restraints and poppy extract were purchased. By the time she reached her new palace, she was obedient, broken, and ready for the second rule. Because exile was only the first act of the stage. The real darkness began the moment you crossed the threshold of your new home, when you were transformed into what the second rule demanded of you. When you became a spy in your own bedroom, that's when the nightmare becomes personal. You're no longer a passive victim. You're an active part of your own destruction. You become a spy. Think about this. You arrive at your new palace in a distant province. Your husband, an influential man you've never met before, receives you with all official magnificence. Banquets are held, music plays, displays of affection are performed before the public. But inside your trunks, hidden expertly among silks and jewels, is a truth, the tools that define your new identity. A secret writing kit, invisible ink prepared from lemon juice and copper sulfate. A simple but effective cipher taught to you by your father's intelligence network. And explicit instructions coded on the inside of a jewelry box. Your husband is no longer a spouse. He's your primary target. His loyalty is now your burden. The order is clear. Record everything. Monitor his every move. Is he complaining about taxes? Criticizing the Sultan in private conversations? Receiving suspicious messages? Strange communications? Every word you hear, every gesture you see, even the smallest unease you notice will be documented. Then sent back to Constantinople as coded reports via merchant caravans that actually function as intelligence couriers. And the perfect psychological torture begins right here. You're expected to share his bed, smile at breakfast, give him advice at state dinners, stand beside him before the public, be his trusted advisor, the mother of his children. While doing all this, you secretly strengthen the possibility of his death with every report you send. The level of detail demanded is chilling. Saying disloyal is never enough. Dates will be provided, names will be written, amounts of money, meeting places, witnesses, everything. Your father has turned your marriage into the most personal and most ruthless intelligence mechanism in imperial history. The communication methods they use are worthy of a spy novel. There's a system called silver tiers. The jewels you wear at public events signal threat levels. An emerald bracelet, loyalty confirmed. A black pearl necklace, imminent rebellion risk, reinforcements needed. A ruby ring on your left hand, target is planning assassination. You're now a walking signal tower. But the real question that keeps you awake at night is different. What if he discovers your double identity? Then there's no trial, no defense, no appeal. Just an execution order from your father's chamber, and your body drifting in the nearest river. Ottoman archival records point to at least 12 cases of governors who accidentally discovered their wives' espionage activities. In every case, the outcome is the same. The princess dies within 72 hours. The official cause of death never changes, fever. But testimonies from palace servants paint a different picture. In 1612, Humasha Sultan, married to the governor of Damascus, was caught by her husband while decoding encrypted messages. The official chronicle mentions a sudden illness, but the governor's personal physician, in a letter secretly delivered to Constantinople years later, writes, "I was ordered to prepare a lethal dose of mercury and present it as medicine for stomach pain. She knew what she was drinking. Yet she accepted it." And he adds these words she reportedly said, "At least this way my father can't say I betrayed him." Your life passes in a lethal balance between loyalty forcibly imposed on your father and inevitable betrayal against your husband. This is not a marriage. This is institutionalized emotional torture, and this entire system prepares the ground for the most merciless rule, the rule that determines what happens when the game reverses. All roads lead to the third rule, the point where the Ottoman political machine shows its true face, a structure ready to grind even its own children. When you fail in your espionage mission, or when your husband rebels, there's no trial, no appeal, no mercy, only silence. The name of the most common punishment is deceptively simple: recall. One day, without any warning, a sealed letter arrives from the Sultan. Not to you, but to your husband. It contains 2 orders. The first notifies that the governor has been relieved of duty. The second is return of asset to point of origin. In bureaucratic language, this means your spouse must return to Constantinople immediately. But the detail that truly paralyzes every princess begins right here. For a princess recalled from the palace, the return journey was actually one way. Chroniclers would meticulously record her departure from the province, but her arrival in the capital was almost never written. The name would drop from records at some point, as if she had never lived. This is how the political disappearances of the 16th century were created. So what actually happened? The methods were planned and cold-blooded. One of the most frequently used procedures was drowning with gold. The princess would be taken to an empty palace on the Bosphorus shore, sedated with spiced wine, then wrapped in luxurious Ottoman silks, weighted with stones, and released into the water. The official narrative was ready: a tragic suicide from the pain of separation from her husband, or an unfortunate accident. The palace always produced an explanation. One example that captures the essence of this system is the case of Fahim Sultan. Daughter of a minor sultan, Fahim's husband was a governor in a distant province accused of disloyalty. She paid the first price. Chronicles write that she was given medicine to calm her nerves. But this medicine was a lethal opium mixture blended with crushed diamond fragments. The fragments would tear her internal organs. The opium would dull the pain. Her body was sent to Constantinople in a sealed carriage. Official report: death by mumps. But the servants who washed her body before burial swore they saw strangulation marks on her neck and glass-like fragments between her lips. Someone wanted to be certain of death. More terrifying is that these weren't exceptions. In palace archives, there's a section titled Returned Assets, a bureaucratic record system, a cold list tracking recalled princesses. Between 1520 and 1680, there are 47 entries. 47 princesses departed provincial palaces. Only 3 confirmed arrivals in the capital. The remaining 44 names simply end. No death certificate, no burial record. The final note is always the same: asset disposed of per protocol. But physical elimination wasn't even the most horrific method. There was a quieter option: the silent room. In the deepest layers of Topkapi Palace, there was said to be a room not shown on official maps. Foreign architects working on palace restorations never saw that room. Its construction was carried out by deaf and mute workers. After completion, all were executed. Princesses who couldn't be eliminated through open execution but were still considered risks to the system would sometimes be sent there. Palace administrative records describe this space as a cell with silk-covered walls, soundproof. 3 times a day, the finest meals are served. The view from the window is not real. It's a painted garden illusion. The princess living inside is kept in absolute comfort and absolute silence. No visitors, no letters, not a single sound from the outside world. Some endure for years, some for decades. A 1640 record states, Subject 7 finally died after 23 years of confinement. Cause unknown. No signs of violence or disease on body. Subject simply seemed to have stopped, as if she had forgotten to exist. This was the price of Ottoman blood. Your father wouldn't kill you out of rage. He'd eliminate you for the system's efficiency. Because a dead daughter carried less risk than a living prince who could become a symbol of rebellion or generate future throne claims. That was the ultimate equation. A father's love was a luxury the Sultan couldn't afford. And now, after seeing the 3 ruthless rules, we come to the real question. What lay behind this perfect fear system? Was the Sultan merely a monster? The answer is more unsettling. He, too, is a product of his own machine. The Ottoman Empire had built such a disciplined, such a functional apparatus of power that it didn't hesitate to sacrifice its own flesh and blood for the sake of stability. Princesses weren't daughters. They were high-value political tools. Their value lay not in their minds or hearts, but in their wombs and their capacity to be expendable intelligence assets. The real tragedy of Humasha and those like her wasn't the man they faced on their wedding night. The true destruction was realizing that the person they called father saw them, just as he saw his enemies, as an expendable chess piece for ultimate victory. This brings us to a disturbing question. How far can a political system dehumanize those who run it? The Sultan sitting on his golden throne was as much a prisoner as the daughter in her gilded cage, inside a lethal paradox. To protect his empire, he had to accept destroying his own family. Stop for a moment and think about this. Throughout history, every loving father has faced the tension between protecting his children and preparing them for a cruel world. But the Ottoman system didn't prepare princesses for the world. It transformed them into instruments to be deployed upon the world. And the most chilling part? The system worked. For over 3 centuries, there were almost no rebellions from within the dynasty. There were no coups led by princesses. No revolutions financed by daughters. Because by the time they reached the maturity to resist, they had already internalized the cage. They had learned that resistance meant death, and obedience meant survival, even if that survival was a living death. Next time you imagine the magnificence of an Ottoman princess, don't think of silk dresses or pearl necklaces. Think of a 14-year-old girl standing before a mirror on her wedding night. A girl who sees in her reflection not a bride, but a ghost trapped inside golden armor. A ghost walking toward a sentence signed by the one person who should have protected her. Her fear wasn't weakness. It was the most natural response humanity gives to a machine stripped of humanity. And the historical silence she left behind speaks louder than any imperial chronicle. If this journey into the dark layers of Ottoman power made you think, share it. Because what's been told here aren't just tales of the past. They're mirrors showing the limits of power and the true cost of absolute control obsession. Examples reminding us what happens when love becomes a weapon, family becomes a battlefield. And they remind us, the most dangerous prisons aren't those with iron bars. They're the ones built in our minds, adorned with gold, legitimized under the name of duty and loyalty. Ottoman princesses are gone, but their stories remain, like a warning written in silk and blood, a trace reminding us what we lose when we allow systems to replace humanity. Don't let their silence go unheard. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next story.